Hey, welcome back to the vlog. Thank you all for all the well wishes. I was in bed sick for basically 5 or 6 days. Didn't do much of anything besides moan and groan, and I'm feeling much better now. There is an announcement I have to make. I've been associated with a poker group called Button Clickers that is on Poker Bros. Over that time, I've never had any issues with them, or any of my members that were on the site never had any issues, but recently that's changed. Their communication was definitely lacking between me and them. I had some feedback from some of you out there that have used their services, and when I looked into it, I found out that they actually ceased operation on Poker Bros, and there is a little message which I have up in the corner, as you can see, saying that if you feel that they owe you some money, please contact this person and they'll see what they can do. Other than that, I have no other knowledge about it. I am not going to be recommending another online poker site. Only thing I'll tell you is just go to your local casino and play there, because I am done with sponsoring things I can't control. Anyway, let's get into some poker. Buy into the 1-3 game at Capital Casino for $500 and off we go. I've been playing for about 10 minutes and I'm under the gun here with Pocket Kings. That's a pretty good hand to start off your day, your week, your month, your year, whatever. Anyway, I opened for a raise to $15. I end up getting 3 callers. So we're going to go 4 ways to this flop with $61 in the center. I got a pretty good hand. I'm kind of liking it. Flop comes out 8 high with a 7 and a 5. Not the greatest flop in the world for an overpair against 3 opponents. First 2 players check. I decided to check, and the player in the hijack ends up betting for $45. Now, I played a lot with this player, and I think that he is quite capable of betting any kind of pair he has here at a large sizing, trying to get out overcards. I put in the call, and we see a 4 hearts on the turn. So I quickly check this because it is a horrible card, not only for my hand, but for my range. It does absolutely nothing for me and does a whole lot for my opponent and my opponent's range. But I'm not actually giving up on this yet. I'm kind of curious on what sizing my opponent will use if he bets at this point. Depending on the sizing and the way he bets and stuff like that, I might put in another call and see what happens after that. So my opponent actually doesn't think very long and decides that he's going to fire out for $100. This kind of bet kind of screams like, get out of my pot. I don't want to play anymore. I put in the call because I think my kings are still ahead, but I don't think a raise is any good because I'm only going to get called if I'm actually beat. I'd rather have him bluff at it again if a blank comes. Well, 2 diamonds is the biggest blank in the world. I check it over to him. He quickly checks it back. I show my kings, and he takes a big peek at it and then mucks his hand. He later told me that he had jacks. Here I'm in the big blind with 9-7 offsuit. I get a free peek at a flop, which I totally miss. Somebody ends up betting something, and I just end up folding. Here I'm in the big blind and get 7 limpers. I have pocket 5s. I just decide to check it, see if I can flop something big, go from there. Well, the flop looks pretty good to me. It comes Jack 5-3 rainbow. I decided to stab small for $10, hoping that someone with a jack would maybe try to protect their hand a little bit and put in a raise. Gets to the player at the end of the table, and he does exactly that. He raises it up to $30. Player next to him in the hijack puts in the call for the $30, and it's folded back around to me. Now it's time to put in a raise and build a pot. I was debating, I don't want to really scare out the jack, but I kind of want to chase out some draws. It's kind of hard to do, so I chose a size of $80. So it's $50 more to him. The initial raiser now decides that he doesn't like his hand as much as he did before when I was just betting out for $10, so he ends up folding. And the player next to him in the hijack, he puts in the call. So when he calls, now we have like $210 in the pot. He has about, $280, $290 left behind. Ace is not a good card, of course, because it completes the straight with 4 deuce. But if he has ace jack, he's hooked. If he had pocket threes, he's hooked. I bet for 140. It might be a little bit optimistic to get called at this point because, what's the guy going to call me unless he has the ace jack? But he jams all in for his remaining stack. So as I said, he had about $280, so it's about 140 more, 145 more. There's 600 and change in the pot, and I have, say, 20% equity against his straights, and against all his other stuff, I'm way ahead. So there's no choice here. I got to be putting in the call. I don't necessarily love it, but I'm getting a great price. River card comes as a 7 of spades. He shows 4 deuce of clubs and scoops this big pot. After that, I put in a loose call with queen 8 suited on the button against 2 big stacks that were putting in some action. Flop was absolutely nothing, and I ended up folding. Here I make a very, very loose raise with 6-3 suited from the low jack after a $6 straddle. I was just trying to get a heads up with this person because I have a pretty good read on them. But I got 2 players behind me putting in the call for $20, and so does the original straddler. So going 4 ways to a flop, that comes out jack 8-7 with 2 hearts. A pretty good flop for my particular hand, but with all those callers, I decided to check it. I don't really have a big enough stack to triple barrel this. So my hope is to just get to the turn and then maybe bet on some scare cards. The last player puts in a bet for $40. I don't mind this. It kind of builds the pot. I was trying to decide what I was going to do if this guy calls, and I was thought about jamming, but then I figure I would have probably 0 fold equity. So I thought the best thing would be just to go ahead and just put in the call. Trying to realize my equity here. I did have thoughts of jamming with a ace or a king on the turn, but I didn't have to think too hard about that when it comes to king of hearts. Now with a small flush against 3 opponents, you don't want someone to be drawing, say, with a 10 of hearts or 9 of hearts in their hand and end up beating you. So I go ahead and I jam all in. I get about $210 left. Only the player behind me actually gave it much thought, and after peeking at his hand a few times, he decided just to let it go. The other 2 players folded fairly quickly, and even though it's a small pot, after getting a set of 5s beat, I'll take it. The very next hand, I decided to play a little bit stronger starting hand with pocket aces. Player limps in, I raise to $20. I get a quick call from the player at the end of the table on the button, and then one of the blinds, and of course the player who limped in. We go 4 ways to a flop with 81 in. Flop comes out jack 4 deuce, all clubs. I do have 2 black aces, so I think I'm in pretty good shape right now. Both players check. I'm going to bet $40. Get a quick call from the player on the button. The other 2 players fold out rather quickly, so it's just going to be the 2 of us headed off to the turn. I'm thinking the only turn card I don't want to see is a jack. Instead, I get probably the second best one, or maybe even the best, with a deuce. My opponent only has like maybe $100 left in front of him. I bet out for $65. I should have just shoved all in at this point. This was a mistake by me by not putting all the chips in when it's likely he has a draw, say like a king of clubs or a queen of clubs in his hand. River card comes is a queen of spades. Well, if he had a queen of clubs, he just made a pair. I'm going to put the rest in. He snap calls. I show the aces. He did show that he had king, queen with the king of clubs. Well, we're back in positive ground right now. Here I'm in the blinds with pocket deuces. There was a raise to $20, a call from $20. Both stacks, both my opponents have deep stacks. I call it just to set mine. Flop comes something, something, something without a deuce. I just ended up check folding to this to a bet and a call. Yeah, sometimes you set mine and you miss. Such is life. Well, here we have a couple limpers in front of me, and I got pocket sevens in the cutoff. This is good enough to go ahead and put in a raise to $20. Trying to build a pot just in case one of these times I'm going to flop a set and it might actually be good. I end up getting 4 callers. So we're going to have $81 in the center. I got position, I got a pair, and we get a flop that comes 8 high. But the second card is a 7, so we flop middle set. Pretty good. Trying to figure out how much I'm going to lead, and the guy bets into me for $35. It's kind of like the size you would do if you had top pair, just trying to figure out where you're at. I'm a little worried that some of the other players might have some sort of straight draw, and I want to kind of isolate him at this point. So I put in a small raise to make it 75. Don't really love this raise sizing. I think maybe going a little bigger or just flatting is probably better. But that's what I did. I put in this raise and I got a heads up. But I also kind of telegraphed that I might have a hand like an overpair at this point. He does put in the call, and we see a beautiful 8 of spades on the turn. He puts in a fairly quick check, and now it's to me. I think it's most likely he has a hand like an 8 or pocket threes. I don't think he has a straight draw. I think if he had a straight draw, he might want to fire at this, trying to scare me off my overpair. So I'm going to bet big. I'm going to bet $200, targeting an 8 or pocket threes, and hopefully we'll get the chips in, and hopefully we're good. Now, he does take some time to think this over. I figured if he had a really strong 8, like ace 8 or king 8, he will just go ahead and jam. Maybe he has a smaller 8 that he's thinking about, whether it's good if I have a hand with an 8 in it. But eventually he decides that he's just going to rip it all in, which I expected. I now beat most of his hands. The only one I was concerned with is, say, 8-7 suited, but with the combination of the 8 of spades on the board and me not having the 7 of spades, it's kind of hard to have 8-7 suited. So if he does have 8-7, he has the offsuit variety. Most likely he just has an 8, and we're just going to have to dodge him making a full house on the river with a 3 or his kicker. The river card comes is a 5 of clubs. Looks fairly safe to me. He shows 10-8 offsuit. I show my full house, and we win a $1,200 pot. This is just to show why you play certain hands. Now, a hand like 8-7 suited in position does really well against deep stacks. You can make straights, make flushes. Sometimes you can make 2 pair or full house. You don't want to play it because it's a top pair, especially a top pair with a weak kicker. So here the flop comes 3-3-7. I got top pair, 7 with an 8 kicker. Small blind leads out for $45. Conservative player with a short stack. He's never doing this with anything weaker than my hand. So when the other players fold out, I just kind of go, well, how much you got left? Oh, okay. I'm done. So remember when you play a hand, why you're playing it. And even though you have top pair, you can just fold it. It's okay. Here we pick up ace-jack offsuit in the low jack, open for $15. I get a call from the player on my direct left. He doesn't have a very big stack, maybe $80 or $90, and a caller from the player in the blind. We see a flop that comes ace-jack 8 rainbow. Yeah, it's a good flop for ace-jack. First player checks. I bet $25. I figure the player behind me, if he has an ace, he's never going to be folding. So it's my sizing is inelastic. He's going to be calling with any kind of ace. Turn card comes is a 7 of spades. I'm just going to get the rest of his chips in. So he kind of shows me what he has. I put in more than that. He makes a snap call, And the river card comes is a 10 of clubs. I show my hand and he shows ace 9. Well, the bad news is we lost to a player that had to make runner against us. Good news is that he was the shortest stack at the table. The very next hand, I pick up ace, king in middle position. Of course, we have a limper in front of us. Put in a raise to $20. We're going to go 3 ways to this flop with 63 in. Flop comes out king, queen, 8 with 2 clubs. I do not have the ace of clubs in my hand. Player to my right bets out for $45. I have a decent read on him. I think he has some sort of flush draw, maybe something like queen, jack of clubs. Either that or some sort of combo draw like jack 10 of clubs, ace jack of clubs, ace 10 of clubs. After his bet, he has about 200 behind. I thought about jamming now, but I decided I'll just jam any non-club on the turn. Turn card to 10 of hearts. Don't really love it. It does complete some of those possible hands he has with the flush draw. Maybe he made 2 pair with queen 10 of clubs, or maybe he made some sort of straight with ace jack of clubs. He bets 100. I jam all in. He snap calls. I figured I just really stepped in it. River card comes, bails me out. It's a jack of hearts. I show that I made the straight. He showed that he already had it with jack 9 of clubs. Well, I guess even the good guys get lucky once in a while. He definitely had me beat on that turn card, but we sucked out on the river. Over the next 45, 50 minutes, the game started getting pretty damn wild. People were stacking off with medium-sized pairs. One guy stacked off with 5-4 suited. Another one stacked off with jacks. So when I was in the blind and I looked down at a pair of aces and we get a couple limps, a raise to 15, a call to 15, being out of position, I'm going to re-raise and I make it a little bit larger than I normally would. I make it 80. As I said, the game was getting pretty wild and I figured I would get some action. Anyone with a pocket pair might get crazy and shove, but guess not. They all end up folding. I played for another, I don't know, half hour. Nothing much else happened, but I did end up booking a nice win. Hey, thank you for making it to the end of the video. This day I ended up winning a little over $1,000. For the week, I ended up winning $1,735. Pretty good results. I'm kind of happy with those. As you can see, our monthly and our year-to-date results are up there on the right. Off to a good start in 2025. My play, I would give myself a B plus maybe for the week. Of course, it's really easy to play well when you're catching cards. Wednesday, I didn't catch as many good cards as this day. This day was very unusual for my little sun run. But Wednesday, I had a tougher time. I got stuck. I got in $1,000 in the game, had a battle back, ended up with a small win in that session. I probably got a little spewy in that day, but able to bring it back and under control and kind of grind it out. You know what they say, hard times make hard people, and hard people can handle anything. Well, thanks for watching. Really appreciate your support. Until next week, good luck at the tables, and we'll see you back here soon.